Exposed. How an incredible HVAC tech's touching sacrifice for 3 years finally saved Thanksgiving. Jack stood at the crumbling entrance of the old community center, clutching a rusted wrench like a lifeline. 3 years of sweat, sacrifice, and relentless hours flashed through his mind. He read the peeling sign above him, "Welcome to our home," and felt the weight of missed opportunities pressing down like the frigid winter air. This wasn't just about fixing heating systems. This was his chance to rescue a piece of his past, to salvage something resembling a family reunion before Thanksgiving. But his father's shadow loomed large like a winter storm on the horizon as the days grew colder. Doubt not at Jack was he merely putting on a show, mending broken pipes while his father cast scornful comments from afar? Each snapped bolt amplified Jack's internal battle. He yearned for his father's approval, but he couldn't shake the feeling of insignificance that had settled over him years ago. The memories of his father's words, "You need ambition, Jack," hung in the air, refusing to dissipate. Could he ever bridge that chasm? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The heater he had repaired for Maxine, the single mother 2 streets over, had been a breakthrough, an unnoticed triumph in a small world, warming her children on the cusp of despair. He had watched, heart swelling, as laughter filled her living room again, even as his own heart ached against the forked path he walked. Each small victory he earned in the community felt like a fleeting glimmer of hope, yet every cheer for his efforts seemed enveloped in the chilling silence of his father's absence. And now, the reality of a greedy developer threatening to bulldoze it all forced Jack into an ugly corner. The irony was suffocating. He was fighting for a place his father had built, but would that ever matter to the man who had turned his back? Jack's fingers shook as he combed through dusty blueprints buried in his father's workshop, revealing a vision once so vibrant, a community center alive with laughter. This revelation ignited a storm of emotions as anger swirled with determination inside him. With Thanksgiving breathing down his neck, Jack's breath hitched as he prepared to confront the man who had shaped him, for better or worse. His mind raced through what he might say, hoping for understanding yet fearing ridicule. And just as he reached the edge of resolve, the wind outside howled, mirroring the chaos thrumming in his heart. Could he face his father? Would he find acceptance, or feel the sting of another rejection? As the door to their past loomed closer, Jack found himself paralyzed with fear and doubt. Would he break through the icy barrier between them, or would he be swallowed whole by the storm of their history? The coming days promised reckoning. Jack's determination surged as he readied for the confrontation that could either give him peace or plunge him deeper into despair. Jack stood outside the weathered building, the weight of the world on his shoulders and his heart hammering in a chaotic rhythm. He could almost feel the icy air reflecting the coldness between him and his father. The promise of Thanksgiving lingered in the air like an unexplainable magic, fragile yet potent. For years he had poured his heart into repairing systems that others deemed unworthy of his talent. But now the stakes felt monumentally higher. This wasn't just another job, this was personal. Each day leading up to the holiday, Jack had forced himself to balance hope and dread. The recent repair for Maxine had been a rare beacon. Seeing her family restored to warmth provided a bittersweet reminder of what a home should feel like. Yet, as he stood on the cusp of confronting his father, Jack battled the gnawing imposter syndrome that threatened to strangle him. Was he truly worthy of the family he longed to unite? He could hear his father's voice echoing in his mind as if it were the wind taunting him. Cold and unyielding, "You need ambition, Jack." Pushing the memories aside, he reluctantly returned to the blueprints and faded photographs that had lain neglected. Each discovery of the original design inspired a flicker of pride. These plans embodied potential his father had long since abandoned. He wanted to see it transformed, not raised in pursuit of profit. Yet, doubt pricked persistently at his resolve. Who was he to challenge someone like his father? The question of ambition haunted him. Did he possess it, or had it vanished in the wake of years lost trying to please the unpleasable? As he paced, contemplating his approach, Jack realized he had been allowing his father's vision to dictate his worth. He felt the dichotomy of pride and shame, both pulling him in opposite directions. In that moment of intense reflection, he resolved to chisel out his own identity amidst the weighty legacy his father had cast. He would anchor himself in the knowledge that every person deserves validation for their passion. His labor as a technician was more than a right. It was his very purpose. Later that day, he found himself at the local hardware store, shopping for supplies. The mundane task felt monumental in light of what lay ahead. Was this a step towards rebuilding or merely an escape? He took a sharp breath as he grabbed items off the shelf. A determination sparked within him. Each nail, each piece of equipment represented a building block not just for the project, but for his own inner fortress, a space where fear couldn't seep in. As he paid, the clerk asked, "Got big plans for the holiday?" Jack's fleeting smile masked the tumult beneath. He replied vaguely, "Just some repairs." The exchange hit him harder than he expected. The rising dread of what confrontation with his father would entail loomed ahead like an icy cliff. And yet, it wasn't merely about saving a building. His actions would reverberate through the family, possibly refashioning attachments long weathered by neglect. With supplies loaded into his vehicle, Jack sat in silence for a moment. A choice lay before him: to remain wrapped in quiet apprehension, or to embrace the chaos of potential transformation, the kind of change that could redefine a fractured relationship. As he turned the key in the ignition, a rush of urgency moved him. Today would not just be another day. It would set the stage for something significant. The path lay uncertain, uncharted. He had his tools ready, but there was still one crucial question that remained. Was he prepared to face his father? The answer would arrive soon, and Jack felt the chill creep back beneath his skin. The time had come to embrace the fear instead of retreating from it. In that instant, he understood if he was to carve his own identity and claim the space that belonged to him, he would need the courage to confront his past. As he drove towards that daunting confrontation, one thought burned bright: this was his moment to finally seize control of his narrative and rewrite the ending they had always feared. Would it lead to reconciliation or fracture? Only time would tell, but for Jack, the stakes were incomparably high. As Jack navigated the familiar streets leading to the worn-out building, his heart thudded with a rhythm that echoed his racing thoughts. What would his father say? The specter of their past loomed larger with every mile. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles flushing white as he fought against the wave of panic rising within him. "I can do this," he repeated to himself, but the mantra felt flimsy against the tempest brewing in his chest. Pulling into the driveway, he gazed at the architecture before him, the peeling paint and rusting pipes that had haunted his childhood. Familiarity consumed him. Yet this time, something else simmered beneath the surface. This wasn't just an opportunity to repair a building. It was a chance to reclaim a part of himself that had long felt suffocated under his father's expectations. But as he stepped out of the vehicle, self-doubt crept in again. Were years of neglected ambition enough to counter his father's formidable presence? With each step toward the entrance, the weight of childhood memories flooded his mind. Harsh criticisms, unfulfilled dreams, and the relentless pursuit of perfection that had dominated their family dynamic. Jack paused, taking a deep breath, the cold air penetrating his lungs like ice water. "You can rewrite this," he whispered. This was his opportunity to reshape not just the building, but their entire relationship. Inside, the hollow silence of the space greeted him like an old friend. Dust motes danced in the light filtering through the grimy windows, illuminating the potential waiting to be uncovered. Jack set to work with a sense of urgency. He traced the blueprints once more, tracing the lines and curves that represented a vision he'd nurtured but kept hidden. The tools felt like extensions of his resolve. With each turn of the wrench and each drive of the nail, he felt the shackles of his father's judgment begin to loosen. As he tackled the first repair, the soothing rhythm of practical work distracted him from spiraling thoughts. He adjusted pipes and sealed leaks, losing himself in the physicality of the task. Yet, with every detail he fixed, his mind danced back to the confrontation looming ahead. Would he be ready? Hours passed, and exhaustion wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. Just as he began to cultivate clarity from the chaos, the door swung open. Jack's pulse quickened. There stood his father, weary lines etched deep across his face. Jack felt every synapse fire off memories. Arguments, disappointment, unspoken words. Jack, his father's voice was gravelly, a mix of surprise and skepticism. What are you doing here? Sensing an opening, Jack swallowed hard but held his ground. I'm fixing the place. It's time we had a talk. The words felt foreign and liberating, charged with a conviction he hadn't felt in years. His father stepped inside, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. The wear and tear, yes, but also the potential for revival. The acknowledgement sent a quiver of uncertainty through Jack. Was there room for change in this space they had inhabited so differently for so long? Fixing isn't enough, son. It never was only about repairs. You need vision. Ambition, his father countered sharply, the challenge hanging between them like smoke. Jack's heart raced. He knew he could either retreat into the shadows of inadequacy, or find the courage to stand firm in his resolve. I'm defining what ambition means for me. Each word was a carefully crafted nail in a framework of newfound boundaries. Today is about more than fixing a building, he pressed. It's about us. In that moment, his father's skeptical gaze softened, a flicker of recognition casting out the shadows of doubt. But beneath that glimmer lay an impending storm of feelings: anger, fear, hope. Jack braced for what would come next. Would this be the start of something meaningful? Or would it spiral into yet another clash of wills? As silence enveloped them, thick with unspoken words, Jack understood that the real work, the restoration of their relationship, was just beginning. The precarious balance between hope and dread hung in the air, charged with possibilities. What had once felt so daunting now became a gnawing realization. The outcome of their confrontation would forever alter the trajectory of their lives. And so as he stood there, electric with tension, he recognized an unfamiliar notion within himself: the capacity to evolve. But, in this crucible of vulnerability, what transformations awaited both father and son? The answer lay suspended in the air, heavy yet enticing, calling for resolution. The air between Jack and his father thickened with tension, the silence almost palpable as both men stood on the precipice of a long-avoided discussion. Jack could feel the gravity of the moment settling in his gut, an unsettling mix of anxiety and hope fueling his resolve. Each heartbeat reverberated in his ears, urging him to push through the tension, to truly confront the legacy of disappointment that had haunted him for years. Vision and ambition don't mean anything if you don't know what you want to build, his father replied, crossing his arms, leaning against the doorway, a barrier set firmly against any further intrusion into his thoughts. Jack's mind raced, grappling with how to articulate the depths of his own aspirations amidst the fog of his father's expectations. What if I don't want the same vision you had? The words poured out, unfiltered, raw. What if I want something different, something that makes me happy? His father's brow furrowed, the skepticism returning like a tidal wave. Happiness isn't enough, Jack. You have to be successful. You have to build something that lasts. That's what this family is about. Each word dripped with pressure, as if Jack was again standing beneath his father's imposing shadow. But as Jack looked around the building, something inside him shifted. This place, worn and neglected, had been a prison in his memories, yet it now felt like a canvas for the life he wanted to create. This isn't just about maintaining an old building, he declared, his voice steadier than he felt. It's about creating a future that feels right for me. A future that isn't defined by you or anyone else. His father narrowed his eyes, the challenge sparking in them. Do you even know what that future looks like? What if you fail? The doubt lingered heavily in the air, intertwining with Jack's burgeoning assertiveness. That's a risk I have to take, he replied, feeling the embers of determination forge a fire within him. If I don't try, I will always regret it. I'm tired of living in fear of failing your expectations. A moment hung suspended between them, both men caught in an unspoken test of wills. Jack's breath came quicker, a mix of fear and excitement bubbling to the surface. Would his father ever accept that his son's journey might diverge from the path that had been laid out for him? Jack, his father finally said, the weight in his voice softening slightly. You've always been capable. You just need to learn how to wield that capability. Take strength to realize when you want different things. But tell me, what do you genuinely want? This question hung in the air, inviting yet daunting. Jack had rehearsed countless responses in his mind, but none seemed adequate. What if he didn't even know entirely himself? The uncertainty gnawed at him, Yet it also illuminated a deeper truth: his journey toward defining himself could begin right there, in that moment of vulnerability. "I want to rebuild this place," Jack confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just for me, but to create something for us. I want to craft a future that starts here, with my decisions shaped by my vision." There it was, his declaration, raw and unrefined, like the dilapidated building around him. But it was something he could finally claim as his own. A vision he could fight for. His father seemed taken aback, processing Jack's words. Was there even an inkling of acceptance behind that hardened exterior? Had Jack finally struck a nerve, reaching beneath the surface of bitterness? "Building something is hard work, son," his father warned, the challenge still clinging to his tone. "You will need more than desire to make it happen." "I know," Jack replied, determination firming in his chest. "And I'm ready for that hard work." As they stood there, a glimmer of recognition passed between them, a frail bridge forming amid the fractures of their relationship. But the road ahead loomed uncertain, full of potential confrontations and realizations that would test their newfound dialogue. In that moment of honesty, Jack realized he wasn't just aiming to fix a building. He was starting a reclamation of his own identity. What challenges lay ahead remained unknown, but within the lingering air was a question that begged to be addressed. Could a fragile trust really be rebuilt from the ashes of their tumultuous past? Jack left his father standing in the doorway, the muted light of the sun streaming behind him like a halo of acceptance. The shift in their conversation lingered in the air, filling Jack with a strange mix of exhilaration and apprehension. He had spoken his truth, but now he faced the daunting task of turning words into something tangible. He stepped into the building that loomed over him, its walls whispering stories of neglect and potential. Dust motes danced in the filtered sunlight, and as he walked farther in, it struck him how much work lay ahead. The chipped paint and creaking floors echoed his own internal chaos. Both were in desperate need of revitalization. Grabbing a notebook from his pocket, Jack perched on an old rickety stool, the wood groaning beneath him. Every detail mattered. He needed a strategy. He scribbled down ideas. Renovate the facade, create open spaces, add modern amenities. His mind raced with possibilities, each more exhilarating than the last. Yet accompanying that excitement was a nagging fear: could he really pull this off? Hours slipped by as Jack immersed himself in the tasks at hand, going from a mere wish to drafting a plan that felt real. But as the sun dipped lower, casting shadows across the dusty floor, doubts crept in. Was he equipped for this? Could he actually build something that aligned with his vision? The thought of failure hung over him, threatening to snuff out the spark of determination he had ignited. He closed his eyes, trying to summon the image of what success could look like. He imagined the laughter of friends filling the rooms, the soft glow of warm lights illuminating a space that felt alive. But with each fleeting thought, he also sensed an internal barrier: the voice of his father, laden with skepticism and high expectations. "Focus, Jack," he muttered aloud, shaking his head in an attempt to dislodge the echoes of negativity. He needed to harness his passion and use it as fuel. Each task he completed became a silent affirmation of his abilities. He started with the small things, cleaning debris and clearing clutter to make room for new beginnings. With each tireless hour, he began to mend not just walls but also the frayed fibers of his own self-esteem. His body ached in exhaustion, but his spirit thrived with every accomplishment, however small. Weeks turned into months, and his routine solidified around hard work and late nights. He transformed from a reluctant heir into an ambitious creator, willing to learn from mistakes, rather than be paralyzed by the fear of them. A wave of pride washed over him as he noticed the transformation. The building was slowly revitalizing, just as he was. They were both works in progress, but his father's words echoed in his psyche, lurking like an unwelcome shadow. What if his father's definition of success was the only one worth pursuing? Every time Jack felt the thrill of progress, a flicker of doubt mingled with it. Was he enough? How would he measure his success? One evening he stood atop a ladder, preparing to paint an old window frame, when he caught sight of a group of neighborhood kids playing outside. They laughed and chased each other, their boisterous joy spilling over into the fading sunlight. In that moment, a sudden realization hit him: success wasn't about fulfilling someone else's dream, but about creating a space where joy could thrive. His heart raced as the implications unraveled in his mind. If he could build a place that brought happiness, maybe just maybe that would be enough. He climbed down the ladder, invigorated with a sense of purpose and clarity that sharpened his focus as he gathered his tools to pack up for the night. A message pinged on his phone. It was a notification for a city planning meeting about development in the area. Excitement buzzed through him, grappling with trepidation. Would this be the moment he faced the scrutiny of the powers that be? Could he engage them without falling prey to the very doubts he was fighting against? Jack took a deep breath, envisioning the idea of integrating his work with the community. It was time to step up not just for himself, but for everyone who deserved a taste of joy in their lives. The time had come for him to face the true test of his aspirations, and Jack was ready to confront it head-on. But what he didn't know was how deeply the past would shadow his steps as he navigated toward the future he so desperately wanted to create. Jack arrived at the city planning meeting, the building's facade looming over him, a stark representation of the change he sought to embody. The excited murmurs of the crowd buzzed around him, pulling him into the atmosphere of collective ambition and hopeful resolve. This was his moment to articulate his vision not just for himself, but for the community he now understood he wanted to serve. As he took a seat, he felt the weight of the room bearing down on him, a paradoxical blend of encouragement and intimidation. He glanced at the agenda spread before him, noting the impressive credentials of the speakers ahead of him: seasoned politicians, established architects, well-regarded business owners. Deep breaths, he reminded himself. Every professional had once been inexperienced too. The meeting began, and he grew increasingly enthralled by the discussions of development, the proposed enhancements to public spaces. Ideas bounced back and forth with an electric energy that struck a chord within him. But with every praise-filled presentation, an anxiety crept into his mind. Could he garner that same respect? Did he even belong in this arena? When it came time for community members to present their thoughts, Jack's heart hammered in his chest. His instincts screamed to cower, to hide behind the safety of his sketchbook rather than step into the light of scrutiny. Yet he remembered the laughter of the children outside his building, the vision of a vibrant atmosphere he had cultivated in the old shell of a structure. What was at stake was much larger than his fear. Finally, he stood, his palms sweaty against the notes he had meticulously prepared. Each step felt monumental, a small act of defiance against the voice of inadequacy that had haunted him. As he approached the podium, a quiet hush fell over the crowd, the energy now palpable and focused solely on him. "Hi, I'm Jack," he started, fighting the tremor in his voice. "I recently took over the old building on Willow Street, trying to breathe new life into it." With each word, he began to shed layers of self-doubt that had clung to him since his father's expectations had loomed so heavily over him. He shared his vision of creating an inclusive space that catered to the joy and needs of the community, focusing on open areas for gatherings, art installations, and activities for families. He felt their focused attention, and with every nod from the audience, a flicker of disbelief shifted into a burgeoning confidence. But then came the questions, sharp, inquisitive challenges from some members of the council who were skeptical of his experience. "What qualifications do you have?" one asked, testing the foundations of his resolve. The question hung in the air like a trap. Quickly, he reminded himself of the countless hours of effort, the progressive changes he had implemented in his building, turning chaos into constructive creativity. He responded, not just with what he had done but what he was ready and willing to learn. "I may not follow a traditional path," he admitted, "but I believe in the power of changing spaces to change lives. This isn't just about a building. It's about what the community can become together." The murmurs in the room took on a different dynamic, more contemplative, softer. Jack's heart raced, the undeniable connection forming between his aspirations and what they might collectively achieve. Each question became an opportunity to articulate his vision more passionately, fueling his inner fire even as he experienced critical moments of doubt. As he concluded, he felt an exhilarating sense of accomplishment wash over him, an affirmation of his identity as a creator. Yet within him, he also sensed the flickers of the fears he had tried to push aside. The feeling that he hadn't fully escaped the shadow of his past, or the expectations projected onto him. When the meeting adjourned, he felt lighter but more aware than ever of the challenges ahead. Engaging the council had invigorated him, yet it had also awakened a sense of urgency. There was so much riding on how This blossomed, and he needed to ensure he was seen not just as a dreamer, but as a doer. As he left the entrance into the night, the cool air kissed his cheeks, rekindling a fire deep within him. A notification pinged on his phone, the screen illuminating a message from a potential investor seeing promises in his vision. Curiosity piqued his interest. This was a chance to elevate his project beyond its humble beginnings. But the question loomed. Was he ready to define his identity not only by passion but also by partnership, and what would that mean for the independence he had long craved? Jack walked home with newfound determination, yet tightly gripped uncertainty, bracing for the confrontation of his values head-on. Jack spent the next few days oscillating between euphoria and anxiety. The message from the investor had ignited a spark, one that propelled him to delve deeper into the realities of his project. He found himself awake late into the night, poring over research articles, market analyses, and urban development theories. Each click brought a whirlwind of information, and with it, a blossomed understanding of potential partnerships and the power dynamics they carried. The moment of realization struck him. He wanted to empower others, and this opportunity could amplify his voice. Yet, he couldn't shake off the feeling that surrendering to partnership might fragment his creative vision. This internal tug-of-war churned in him, threatening to derail the increasing confidence he had gained at the city meeting. On the fourth day, Jack decided to meet with a potential investor, a well-respected figure known for navigating similar projects. As he stood in front of the slick glass building, he felt the walls closing in, mirroring the confinement he feared would come with casting his net wider. He could almost hear the echoes of his father's disapproving voice whispering, "Don't compromise your vision." Inside, the investor greeted him warmly, and they exchanged pleasantries. Jack felt genuine excitement radiate from the older man, who articulated a comprehensive vision for urban spaces that struck a chord deep within Jack. But with every piece of sagacious wisdom imparted, Jack's gut twisted with uncertainty. "Jack, you're turning heads," the investor remarked, leaning in, eyes twinkling. "Your vision is fresh. Imagine the impact we could make together." But the idea of together gnawed at him, as if it were a chain binding his dreams in place. "What does that partnership look like?" he cautiously inquired, his voice steadying despite the rising tension. The response came gently yet firmly. "It's a collaboration that will amplify your voice while providing guidance and resources. You possess the vision, I can help manifest it. We maintain your essence, just enhance your reach." Jack pondered the path he stood at the threshold of. With every encounter, he was confronted by the choices that lay before him: accept potential guidance or espouse bravado in solitude. How did he want to define his commitment? Over the next week, Jack took to exploring the elements of collaboration, immersing himself in discussions with other local entrepreneurs and creative minds. They shared their fears regarding partnerships: the loss of artistic control, the fear of being undermined. Each story offered him glimpses into the intricate dance of compromise and creativity. Yet amidst these conversations, a newfound clarity rippled within him. What if partnership didn't equate to yielding his vision? Perhaps he could be the architect of his own hybrid approach, where he held the reins while being open to influence. With that realization, Jack executed a plan to develop a presentation, merging his vision with market viability, outlining potential collaborations while maintaining creative control. He hoped to convey that partnership could be a powerful tool rather than a constraint. As the day of the follow-up meeting with his investor arrived, he walked in with resolve. His heart raced, not from uncertainty but from the thrill of harnessing his intentions. "Let us discuss how we can enhance each other's strengths," Jack said, ready to negotiate. The investor raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You're prepared for this conversation?" "Absolutely," Jack affirmed, the weight of past hesitations lifting. But as the discussion progressed, Jack encountered unexpected resistance. The investor pushed for a greater share of control than Jack was comfortable with, and suddenly the possibility of their synergy felt strained. The air grew thick with tense possibilities. "I believe we need to revisit what this truly means for us both," he countered, emboldened by his inner clarity. Jack realized he must now confront the possibility of walking away. Would he hold steadfast to his vision or risk it for a fleeting alliance? The thought plunged him into a whirlpool of questions about what he could gain not only professionally, but personally. He ended the meeting, both empowered and shaken. As he walked away, he felt the lines of his identity sharpen. He must set boundaries that aligned with his core reasons for pursuing this venture. Standing outside, uncertainty loomed large, but so did determination. Somewhere within him was the conviction that led him this far, a belief that reconciled his passion with purpose. Just as he turned to leave, his phone vibrated again. A quick notification teasingly complied just beneath his awareness. The message could change everything yet again. A respected architect had reached out with interest in collaborating on the very project he had shared with the investor. But this time Jack felt a different energy. Both opportunity and discernment swirled within him. Could this be a true partnership based on mutual respect rather than compromise? Just then, as he clenched the phone in one hand, another question struck. What if he had been preparing for this moment to architect not only the spaces he envisioned but the connections that could elevate them? He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his choices and the thrill of potential align before him. The moment of shaping his future seemed closer than ever. Yet within it lurked the shadows of uncharted decisions. Would he carve a path that remained true to himself, or would he navigate the unsteady waters of collaboration, hoping it would not lead to self-betrayal? Jack stared at his phone, the notification lingering like a beacon in an otherwise foggy reality. His pulse quickened, his mind racing as he opened the message. The architect, the one who had gained acclaim for enriching urban landscapes with innovative designs, was intrigued by his project. It felt almost serendipitous, and yet, he was acutely aware that this encounter required careful navigation. What could this mean? He pondered, internalizing the weight of the invitation. The spectrum of possibilities flickered before him, both luminous and shadowy. Could this architect genuinely enhance his vision, or would it turn out to be just another instance of relinquishing his creative independence for the sake of collaboration? Taking a moment to gather his thoughts, Jack straightened himself. It was time to turn this fleeting interaction into something of substance. He began drafting a response, carefully articulating his admiration for the architect's work, while also expressing his desire for a partnership steeped in mutual respect. Let us explore how our visions align, he ultimately wrote, pressing send with a tether of hope and trepidation. The prospect felt different than his previous encounter. This was not merely transactional. The architect had built a reputation for valuing individual voices within collaborative endeavors. As he settled into his routine day, Jack couldn't shake the anticipation thrumming through him. Every tick of the clock heightened the urgency of their impending meeting. Hours morphed into a charged silence, drowning out the mundane. He could barely focus on his existing projects as he plotted the course of this potential alliance. When the reply finally emerged the following day, its warmth imbued Jack with a renewed sense of purpose. They agreed to meet at a local cafe renowned for its atmosphere, the kind of place where ideas were nurtured alongside artisanal brews. On the day of the meeting, Jack arrived early, setting his laptop on the table and fiddling with his presentation slides, the culmination of his thoughts on blending their visions. The cafe buzzed softly, a curated hum that provided a comfortable backdrop for his nerves. As the architect entered, Jack was captivated not only by his design portfolio under his arm, but also by an easy charisma that seemed to fill the room. They exchanged greetings, and a brief exchange of pleasantries turned into a deep conversation defined by tangible excitement. "So what's the heart of your project?" the architect asked, leaning forward. Jack struggled to articulate the essence of his vision without succumbing to the fears that lingered at the edges of his mind. "I want to create spaces that redefine interaction in urban settings, areas that catalyze community engagement while echoing sustainability," he explained, feeling the words pulse with urgency as they fell from his lips. "And how do you see collaboration?" the architect pressed, "transforming that vision into reality?" In this moment, a revelation struck Jack, an understanding that transcended mere strategy. The architect didn't merely seek to partner. He wanted to co-create. Collaboration could enhance the innovation inherent in this vision, allowing us to tap into resources and networks that I alone have yet to explore, Jack stated, confidence coiling in his chest. They delved deeper, mapping out ideas and aspirations, each suggestion imparting newfound energy to their exchange. Jack felt liberated, articulating concepts that stirred in him, with each nod from the architect affirming the validity of his voice. Once their conversation shifted to logistics, Jack found himself faced with the inevitable question: "What is your vision for our roles moving forward?" It swirled like a storm within him, the very essence of compromise looming again over their exhilarating dialogue. He hesitated, recalling his previous struggles to maintain control. I envision us leading this with equal efforts. While I'd like to maintain the conceptual control, I firmly believe that mutual feedback will drive this to greater heights, Jack proposed, feeling both the weight and possibility of his words settle in the air. The architect's smile broadened. Yes, a true partnership can enhance creativity without sacrificing authenticity. That's crucial. As they continued, Jack realized that negotiating this new relationship wouldn't just be transactional. It was a cultivation of a philosophy intertwining mutual respect and rich collaboration. The conversation faded into a natural closure, yet Jack left feeling rejuvenated. This meeting had solidified something deeper within him. It shifted his perspective beyond merely what he could achieve to encompass how collaboration could elevate him while preserving his vision. With each step, he became aware of the contours of his path less fragmented, more enriched. However, the lingering specter of past decisions loomed. The message from the architect empowered him, but what awaited him as they ventured into this artistic alliance? As he walked away, the sound of his phone buzzed again, igniting a flurry of emotions anew. It was a message from the previous investor, seeking another meeting. Jack stopped in his tracks, torn between excitement for the project ahead and the anxiety of revisiting that potential compromise. The future loomed with questions he had yet to confront. Would he go back to negotiate terms on his own vision, or would he pursue this promising collaboration, risking the boundaries he had begun to establish? The stakes felt higher than ever. Jack clenched his fists, all too aware that he could no longer afford to stand in the shadows of uncertainty. It was time for a choice that could define not only his project but the very essence of who he wanted to become. Jack stood still, the weight of the decision pressing against him like a physical force. He glanced at his phone again, the message from his investor waiting in the digital silence, urging him back to a past he had begun to distill into something defined. The architect's invigorating presence consumed his thoughts. He felt emboldened by their conversation. Yet here lay the crux of his dilemma. The investor offered security shaped by familiarity, while the architect represented a leap into the unknown and the quiet of the cafe. Jack's heart beat in sync with the palpable tension swirling in his mind. He tugged at the hem of his jacket, striving for clarity amid competing impulses. He replayed phrases from their meeting, visions of transformative spaces and innovative designs colliding against memories of contract negotiations and compromises that had stymied his creativity. Is it worth the chance? He muttered under his breath, the thought echoing in the recesses of his mind. He closed his eyes, grappling with an internal dialogue that sliced deep into his sense of self. Choosing the new partnership meant he'd be vulnerable again, but the prospect of authentic collaboration sparkled as an enticing liberator, reframing how he could influence urban landscapes. With renewed determination, Jack opened the message from his investor. The familiar corporate jargon seeped into his consciousness, and he felt his resolve falter momentarily. What he had once perceived as safety now seemed like shackles. He could envision another meeting filled with the same predictable discussions, him boxed into a role he'd long outgrown. Just as quickly as that thought emerged, he countered it. Couldn't he maintain control while fostering growth through connection? The choice loomed painfully before him, whispering doubts into his ear. Yet another vision sparked within him. What if he said no? What if he walked away from the predictable and embraced everything the partnership with the architect could be? His hands trembled as he weighed potential gains against the risks. With a sudden surge of resolve, he opened a new message to the architect. Let us discuss our next steps. I'm all in, he typed, then hesitated before hitting send. He wanted to infuse it with certainty, a declaration of purpose that encompassed his willingness to step boldly into this new venture. Just as he was about to finalize his response, another buzz pulled his attention. It was an incoming call from the architect. His breath caught. The pulsating rhythm of anticipation surged within him. On the other end, the architect spoke with enthusiasm, discussing the initial steps to initiate their collaboration, igniting a fire in Jack's heart. Is there any chance you'd like to co-host a workshop with me? The architect asked. It could be an opportunity to bring our concepts to a wider audience and gauge interest. Absolutely, Jack replied without hesitation, the clarity pouring over him like sunlight breaking through gray clouds. Was this the starting line of something profound? The conversation blossomed, weaving dreams into actionable plans. Jack found himself articulating ideas with an energy he hadn't felt in ages. As his enthusiasm climbed, he realized that he was no longer the uncertain novice cautiously tiptoeing through opportunities. He was a burgeoning leader, willing to explore the boundaries of his vision alongside someone who shared his values. As they hung up, Jack felt the weight of indecision lift, replaced by a wave of inspired clarity. He had chosen the path that felt true to his essence, one that could redefine his trajectory. Yet, even in this moment of triumph, the specter of the investor lingered at the corner of his mind. Despite the promise of collaboration ahead, the previous partnership's shadows still danced around him. What would it mean to pursue success without the security net he had relied upon for so long? With every step toward his unfolding future, Jack felt the tension of those unresolved emotions spiral back into focus. He opened his phone again, staring at the unsent message to the investor. Could he let go of the very foundation he had built, and in doing so embrace a bold new beginning? The real test loomed ahead, and with it came the tantalizing echo of his next decision, a choice that could not only redefine his career but reshape his identity entirely. The moment of truth had arrived. Jack stood before the newly revitalized community center, a sense of pride swelling in his chest as he surveyed the transformation that had taken place over the last year. The once derelict building now radiated warmth and vitality, a vivid reflection of his commitment to reclaiming his identity and redefining what success meant to him. Each detail he had meticulously planned: the open spaces that fostered connection, the vibrant murals that told stories of resilience, marked not just an achievement in urban renewal, but a testament to the growth he had undergone personally. Weeks had rolled by since the invigorating workshop he co-hosted with the architect, where community voices amplified aspirations, and skepticism began to dissolve into tangible projects. That event had catalyzed momentum. The community rallied around their shared vision, and excitement rippled through local residents eager to see their home evolve. Jack had forged partnerships that honored his vision while integrating diverse perspectives, marrying creativity with collaboration. Standing at the entrance, Jack remembered the fear that had once consumed him, that gnawing doubt rooted in the shadows of his father's expectations. "You need ambition, Jack," echoed less hauntingly, transferred to a context less about his father's perception and more about his understanding of passion and purpose. He had worked hard to climb out from under that shadow, to prove to himself that ambition could be redefined. He wasn't simply a technician. He was a creator, a leader shaping the future. As he stepped inside, the sounds of laughter and conversation enveloped him. Families gathered in the spacious hall, children darting between art exhibitions that showcased local talent. The energy crackled with the same magic he had envisioned, the palpable sense of community igniting joy and creating sacred moments. Jack exchanged smiles with friends and neighbors who had once been strangers, all of whom now shared an unbreakable bond through their collective aspirations. He felt alive with purpose, recognized not simply for his technical skills but for his capacity as a visionary. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, a reminder of progress beyond this space. A notification from the city council flashed on his screen. They wanted to honor his work in urban revitalization at an upcoming ceremony, recognizing his unique contribution to the community's development. As he read the message, a smile spread across his face. This acknowledgement crystallized a year of incessant effort, demonstrating that he was seen, that he mattered. In that moment, he glanced back at the building, the structure that had endured many storms and now stood vibrant, much like him. Jack realized that every repaired pipe, each painted wall, was a more profound symbol of his journey. It represented reclamation, resilience, and the undeniable power of dreams manifesting into reality. The ghosts of doubt were just that, irrelevant remnants of the past, silenced by his resolve. He had transformed from a technician laboring under another's shadow to a leader who empowered others to find their voices. Back outside, Jack noticed a girl no older than 7 engrossed with a sketchpad against the brick facade, whirling lines that echoed the life pouring from within. He approached her, curious about her vibrant imagery that captured the new essence of the center. "What are you drawing?" he asked, leaning forward. "I'm drawing what I see," she beamed, glancing up through her ponytail. My friends and I are gonna have a party here. I want it to be happy like the painting on the wall. Jack's heart soared. This was exactly what he hoped to see, a space where dreams thrived, where children felt joy and ownership over their environment, shaping something broader than his singular vision. As the sunset painted the sky a rosy hue, Jack felt a swirl of contentment deep within his newfound confidence. It reinforced the transformative journey he had undertaken. He proved to himself that ambition could thrive outside the confines of familial expectation, that it could be nurtured through community engagement, collaboration, and personal authenticity. Today wasn't just about a ribbon cutting. It marked the rebirth of his identity, a declaration that he was not merely repairing buildings, but actively participating in the evolution of narratives. In the soft twilight, he felt truly liberated. With solid confidence, he turned to the employees he had gathered, individuals he had inspired and motivated, and raised a glass in celebration, knowing that each breakthrough began not just with him, but with a community poised for greatness. As he raised the glass, an electrifying thought coursed through him. To everyone watching, you need to subscribe now for more inspiring transformations that redefine what you thought was possible. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and keep these stories alive. Tell us in the comments your theories about building futures. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the power of personal overcoming stories. Join us on this journey, and let us redefine the narrative together.